Hello, welcome back here in the CAYDEN'S WEATHER CENTER right now, paying attention to the tropics. This is our biggest focus that we're paying attention to as we go on throughout the next couple of weeks. This is the Atlantic right now here. According to the National Hurricane Center, we can clearly see there's an area of low pressure system that is kind of off the coast here of Texas, and that's something we want to keep an eye out on just in case if there is possible development from that system, bringing lots of moisture into Texas and Louisiana here. That's what we're constantly seeing, as of right now. Then we have this area of interest right here, not an invest or anything, but they do keep pushing back the area where it does have the best possibilities of formation. Now it's all of the Caribbean here that we could be seeing. A little bit was just east of the Lesser Antilles, but regardless of the development, there's going to be a lot of heavy rainfall here for the Lesser Antilles. And then we have another area of interest out here in the Atlantic. Not much to really be paying attention to, though, as we go on with this storm, because the majority of the model is bringing it up and just getting recurved to the north. But this tropical system right over here by Texas does have a 20% chance here of formation in the next 7 days, 10% chance in the 48 hours here. Localized flash flooding is going to continue here on coastal Louisiana and upper Texas during the next few days, according to the National Hurricane Center and the Storm Prediction Center. Taking a look here, 50% chance of cyclone formation here for near the Lesser Antilles here in the Caribbean Sea. This is most likely going to be possibly come, a tropical depression, tropical storm until late next week here. We could be seeing a little bit of a tropical system here in the Caribbean. The intensity is still very, very, don't exactly know. Disturbance 3 over here out in the Atlantic, 10% chance here for formation here in the next 7 days. Not really anticipating a formation as of right now, but definitely we'll head into a little bit more of favorable environment once it starts to get into this region. But this right now is not our main focus. This one is, and this one. So we're going to keep an eye obviously on that. Taking a look here at the satellite picture though. If we take a look here at the satellite, we're obviously seeing a lot of thunderstorms, a lot of deep convection also blowing up here in the Gulf of Mexico due from that storm that we're paying attention to very closely here. Some tropical moisture obviously over here by Cuba and eastern Florida. That could be bringing some heavy rainfall to the Bahamas. Then this is our area of interest that's going to continue to push off over here to the west, and we'll head through the Lesser Antilles. Not looking too impressive this morning. Same with this area of interest back here, not looking very impressive. Pretty nice, impressive looking tropical wave, though, will be coming off Africa pretty shortly, it seems, and we'll definitely be keeping an eye out on that. Taking a look at the area of interest that we've been paying attention to, we can clearly see there's been some convection still blowing up over here on this side, but now starting to see some thunderstorms starting to blow up on the kind of eastern side or the western side of the system here as it continues to push off to the west here. We're going to keep an eye out on that. Heading into the true color, there's majority of your storms with it. It's still very, very disorganized of thunderstorms and all that. Still that tropical wave feature, so doesn't exactly have a closed center, which is a little bit confusing when it comes to the models and what we could be seeing with the model runs, because we've seen a lot of different model runs over the past 24 hours from the last video. A lot of dry air over here over the Lesser Antilles, parts of Puerto Rico, a lot of dry air there. This system is kind of sitting into that moist air though, and you can see those thunderstorms starting to blow up a little bit more here with certain little thunderstorms we can clearly see. But this is sitting in some moist air right now, currently watching that as the dry air is kind of just off to its northwest here. The question is, while it pushes off over here to the north or to the west, could we see it interfere with some of that dry air? I think we'll see it a little bit with that dry air, but not an insane amount where it could hurt it a lot. Those sea surface temperatures obviously very, very hot. You can see in the western Gulf of Mexico reaching up to possibly 31, 32 degrees Celsius in certain areas. Really 30 degrees Celsius in several places, and you can even see over here on southern Cuba 31 degrees Celsius over here. And then as you go through the Caribbean, reaching up to 29, 30 in certain areas here, and then the west coast of Florida heading into the Gulf, 30 degrees Celsius in this region right here, and then a little bit of a kind of a line here off the coast of the Carolinas, 30 degrees Celsius. So obviously record temperatures is continuing in the Gulf of Mexico, and we could be seeing a Gulf of Mexico storm. That's our main focus right now. Taking a look right now here at this right now, taking a look here at the shear, there are systems right back here. That's where our system is going to continue to push off. Obviously It's right now not going through a lot of wind shear as we're talking right now. It's not going through a lot of wind shear, but there is a little bit of wind shear that is in the Caribbean, but that is expected to decrease over here in the next couple of days. We're going to see it decrease and not be too big of an issue. There is a lot of increasing wind shear right here, though, in this area right here, stretching from all the way over from Florida all the way down here into Central America and South America. We're going to keep an eye on that. The Gulf of Mexico, still on the western Gulf of Mexico, does not have increasing shear as much as the eastern Gulf of Mexico and the western Caribbean does, so that could play a factor in the formation of this tropical system. Taking a look here at the Euro ensembles, this is something we always want to take a look at and see. What are we looking at here with the Euro ensembles? We can see the European starts to pull up some of those models 48 hours out. We can clearly see, starting to watch that very, very closely here. We can clearly see we're going to see something 96 hours. There it is in the Caribbean, the Eastern Caribbean here. Could it impact parts of maybe Puerto Rico and the Lesser Antilles? Yes, it's most likely it will be impacting the Lesser Antilles here, and we can clearly see the Lesser Antilles will be impacted probably by the system, but not maybe by a tropical system at all. This is where this kind of little circle right here, this is where our best possibilities of formation it will be here. If the storm still forms, you know, it could be something. Heading into around 7 days from now, we can clearly see here, heading into the Western Caribbean, we could be seeing some models bringing it up into possible hurricane status, so something to be paying attention to. The question is when does it get pulled off to the north here? It all depends here, and we'll talk about the steering currents in a little bit here. Heading into 9 days, though, we still see really just a lot of models still spread out completely. We still have some models heading into Florida, and then we have some models heading into Texas, parts of maybe Mexico as well. So very, very split, I would say, here. And then we head into the GFS ensembles, a little bit more of a different scenario here. You can see September 7th here, we're going to currently see some models get pulled up to the north quicker and kind of go through the Dominican Republic and parts of maybe Puerto Rico, and then some models still keep it down to the west, so something to pay attention to as we go on with that. But we're seeing a little bit more of the models starting to kind of head more in this type of region here than a little bit yesterday. We're starting to see a little bit more of an idea on where we're going to be, but you can still see, just like the European model, this is so spread out, we do not exactly know on where the system will be heading. So we could be seeing a possibility of a turn into the Florida Panhandle. We could be seeing it go into Louisiana or maybe even Texas here. So very big questions are still on the table here, and we're going to keep an eye out, obviously, on that. Heading into the GFS, this is the 12Z model. It's still continuing to come out right now, so we're going to have to keep an eye on that. But as you can clearly see, the GFS really not saying this tropical system is going to form here. So, you know, and we've been seeing this off and on where it says it can become a big hurricane, but now it's not even saying much. There's that tropical wave that we're paying attention to. That's our tropical wave currently. Heads into the Caribbean, the Eastern Caribbean here. We can clearly see, if you're curious on where the tropical wave is, it's right in here. That's our tropical system that we're paying attention to. Then we watch it head off to the west here, and there it is. One big zone here of just a bunch of rainfall. Heading into the 0, or let's head into the 6Z, as we can clearly see here for the GFS. We can clearly see that there is something that did pop up here, kind of went over the Yucatan here, bringing heavy amounts of rain to the Yucatan. We're going to keep an eye out, obviously, on that. Then kind of just stalls out here in the Gulf of Mexico, the western Gulf of Mexico, heads into and kind of just off the coast of Texas and then into Louisiana. That would be some really bad news here for all of the coast of Texas and Louisiana here, because it's bringing it in 988 millibar hurricane here. We could be seeing something interesting to be paying attention to as we go on throughout the next couple of days. But then we take a look here at the European model. This was earlier this morning. Still a lot, not really looking like it's a tropical system really until it starts to get just off to the eastern part of the Yucatan here. We could be seeing that a little bit more. And as it heads over to the Yucatan, it will get pulled off to the north according to the European model. That could impact here Florida, Mississippi, Alabama, and Louisiana here that we could be paying attention to very, very closely here. That's something we definitely want to keep an eye out on, because we've seen kind of a little bit more of a trend of a more westward push. Yesterday we kind of saw a little bit more of a trend here heading into a little bit more to the north. Now we're starting to see a little bit more models kind of keeping it off to the west here. It all depends on this high pressure that is sitting right over here. How strong will that high pressure be? The GFS says it will be a lot more stronger and kind of hanging out over Florida as well. So that would kind of block Florida. The European model has kind of been starting to agree with that, but now bringing the storm possibly into the coast of Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama, and maybe even the Florida Panhandle. Taking a look at the CMC model, 12Z is coming out right now for this the CMC. You can clearly see the CMC forms it very quick here in the Central Caribbean, Eastern Caribbean here. Then we can see it continue to move off to the west here, and that's all we have so far with this model run. But you can clearly see keeps it off to the west in a lot more of a weaker system here. If we head into the 00Z, kind of it's really earlier this morning said a very, very stronger system here heading over the Yucatan, and then we'll get still all the way over here into the western Gulf of Mexico, which could impact a possible Texas and Louisiana landfall here, something because, you know, if it continues moving off, we could be seeing Texas. If we see a Louisiana, it's something. So that was earlier this morning, obviously keeping it a weaker system now, so it's definitely something to pay attention to with the 12Z models, but we're starting to see a little bit more trend off to the west here. The Icon 12Z model has come out as well. The Icon, I will say, has been really set on this one system right here as well, kind of keeping it possibly a tropical system here, and you kind of can see it, and it could form into a tropical storm here as it heads into possibly Louisiana, or maybe even a slight tropical depression. But taking a look at that area of interest that we're continuing to pay attention to in the Atlantic, this is our tropical wave here. September 3rd is when we're expecting this here. We can clearly see really so weak, doesn't even form here according to the Icon, and we could be seeing maybe just a lot of rainfall on where the storm could go. So this might not even form here. So, you know, some of the models saying it's going to be very weak, and, you know, it keeps being off and on here with the intensity, so definitely something to pay attention to. But as we're going to be keeping an eye out on this tropical system here and this tropical wave as it keeps moving off to the west here, keep an eye out on the National Hurricane Center as well. They're planning on sending a plane out into it eventually here, maybe probably into early part of next week. But this is so much that we want to pay attention to because the models are saying it's going to be a hurricane. Some models saying it's just not going to be. And the spaghetti models and the ensembles keep pushing it more and more off to the west here. So something to pay attention to. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.